Hi there, welcome to my small YouTube channel. I'll be talking to you about moving across Canada, my art studio, and coming down with cancer. Most people, when they hit age 69, if they can afford it, probably think about taking it easy, traveling around the world, spending more time with their family and grandkids. But at age 69, my wife and I, two daughters, age 15 and 8, since we'd never been able to afford a place in Nanaimo, BC, on Vancouver Island, filled a small trailer and a half-ton Dodge Silverado with our belongings and headed to New Brunswick, on the other side of Canada. When we reached Golden, BC, the truck broke down, which as it turned out was lucky for us, because the load was way too heavy, and if we'd carried on, the truck's frame most likely would have broken in half. Despite being repaired, the truck broke down in every province and the trailer once. And if that wasn't bad enough, while traveling through Ontario, we got hit by a huge transport truck while making a left-hand turn off the highway, which pretty much destroyed the left front wheel. The truck shouldn't have been passing, but luckily several other drivers saw what happened, because the driver tried to blame me, and believe it or not, I've never driven a car, only motorcycles. It took about 2 weeks before we arrived at the old farmhouse and 25 acres in Fosterville that we had bought. I had grown up with racehorses and used to spend summers when I was a kid at my grandfolks' place in Woodpecker, BC, about 40 miles south of Prince George. Since I've always enjoyed the raw grandeur of nature, there's nothing like roaming through the forest or strolling along a beach. I was in my element. Before long, we had 100 chickens and a couple of goats running around the place, and a huge Great Pyrenees dog named Lukey. However, although I had taken on the role of a farmer, I was still mostly an artist and needed somewhere to work. The winters get severely cold here, and the way I see it, there are 2 months of spring, 2 months of summer, 2 months of fall, and 6 months of winter. And when winter ends, the pesky mosquitoes and the black flies arrive. So I built a well-insulated studio in a portion of the garage. I churned out a lot of work there, and when my friend was moving, I asked if he was interested in selling one of his buildings that he had used for storage. When I asked him how much he wanted for it, I didn't argue about the price. Bought it on the spot for $500, which included skidding it about a half a mile away to our property. The building contained a loft, but it was impossible to stand up in the space. So I ripped it out and built a new one, so that anyone 6 feet or less was able to stand under it or on top of it. Since the building didn't have power, I dug a trench from the house and put in an electrical box and wired the building with lots of plug-ins. For heat, I installed a wood stove and a stainless steel chimney someone was throwing away. Actually, I scrounged a lot of stuff from a nearby dump, including the windows and the door. One man's junk, another man's treasure. I think that's how the saying goes. Now, I'm not a great handyman by any means, more of an ad-lib sort of guy, but since I couldn't afford to hire anyone, I did almost all the carpentry work myself, which included installing the windows and the door, plus finishing off the interior. When it came to the stairs and porch, I exchanged the painting and some of my time helping my neighbor for his woodworking expertise. I didn't add up how much I spent for wiring the tongue and groove boards, plywood insulation, tools, paints, nails and screws and other odds and ends, but I'm guessing the full amount was around $4 grand. Still, including the actual building, $4 to $5 grand is still pretty cheap. Besides the studio, I also built an attached barn and coop to the garage for the goat and chickens. The materials were basically free, except for the cost of hiring a neighbor to help me rip down a small barn that they were going to burn. Plus, the metal roof was still like brand new, hardly any rust at all. What a score that was. I still have some lumber left over from that barn, and even a few sheets of roofing, which I use for odds and ends. There's always something that needs repairing. After I nailed all the cedar shingles on the exterior, of the art studio, I planned on painting it barn red, just like the garage, but instead decided to just let it naturally age. It was a big job for an old man, but it beats the hell out of just sitting around and watching TV. It's not like I don't do that too, but watching TV isn't high on my list. I spend a lot of time in that studio, painting and writing. Yeah, I write stories too, even have about a dozen books published. After I began feeling funny one cold evening in November, I went temporarily blind. I couldn't see anything as I started walking towards the house with my hands stretched out in front of me, and when I finally touched it, I just felt along the building until I found the door. By the time I got inside, I was shaking like a leaf, almost convulsing, and my wife called for an ambulance. As it turned out, I had rectal cancer, and perhaps that's what I got for being a real a-hole sometimes. It took about 3 to 4 years to recover from the 2 operations, radiation and chemotherapy. Even had an ileostomy bag attached to me for a year. Since it wasn't likely I'd ever work in my studio again, I put it up for sale. The starting price was $20,000, and then I dropped it to $10,000, and then almost sold it to a guy. Next year, when lumber prices jumped almost double the price, he came back and wanted to buy it for $10,000. As if. You should have seen the look on his face when I told him it was for sale at the original price, which was still a good price. I still use the building, but it's more for exhibiting my art when we put on our annual Golden Unicorns Festival. Well, that's about it. Thanks for watching my YouTube channel, and if you'd like to see more, please subscribe and even leave a comment. It's always good to make new friends.